President Vladimir Putin will not be attending the summit personally, but will be represented by his Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov. In a statement issued by the president's spokesperson Vincent Magwenya, President Ramaphosa confirmed that the leaders of China, Brazil, India, and South Africa will be at the summit, and that by mutual agreement, President Vladimir Putin of Russia will not be attending. This comes after the South African president asked permission from the International Criminal Court not to arrest Mr. Putin if he visits South Africa, because to do so would amount to a declaration of war. The BRICS summit will take place from the 22nd to the 24th of August this year.
By mutual agreement, President Putin of the Russian Federation will not attend the summit. However, Russia will be represented by Foreign Minister Mr. Sergei Lavrov. President Ramaphosa has in recent months and weeks held a number of consultations on the hosting of the summit. The President's most recent consultation in this regard took place yesterday at the BRICS Political Party Dialogue in Gauteng.
Meanwhile, the Kremlin says Russia did not tell South Africa that arresting President Vladimir Putin on an arrest warrant from the International Criminal Court would mean war. Asked by reporters if Russia said arrest of Russian President Mr. Putin would mean war, actually, the Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov said in his words, no, this was not said out loud. Nobody hinted at anything like that. He adds that it's clear to everyone that what that kind of infringement against the head of the Russian state would mean. No, we did not need to explain anything to anyone. Let's get more on this. African Affairs analyst Ibrahim Anoba joins me now from Cape Town, South Africa. Good to have you today.
Sure.
So it's clear that the Russian president will not be attending the BRICS summit in person. But what do you make of South African President Cyril Ramaphosa's stance on ensuring that the Russian President Vladimir Putin is not arrested by the International Criminal Court?
Well, thanks for having me, Joke. I think this situation throws up the major weaknesses in the ICC as an international justice court. Remember, this happened in 2015 when the same South Africa failed to arrest Omar al-Bashir after al-Bashir was already declared wanted by the ICC for committing war crimes in Darfur. And now South Africa has refused to arrest Putin should he have been in that country. I guess the question here then is, when ICC finds leaders culpable of committing war crimes and it declares them wanted, who's going to make the arrest? As you know, the ICC doesn't have its own police officers that could go into Moscow to go pick up Putin from the Kremlin. So it depends on the goodwill or cooperation, I should say, of states or countries like South Africa that signed to the Rome Statute, and South Africa is bound by that statute. However, the failure to arrest Bashir in 2015 and the suggestion that it will not arrest Putin is in direct contravention of that Rome Statute that South Africa signed up to. As a consequence, it undermines the work of the ICC.
And of course, Mr. Ramaphosa, South Africa's president, had said that Mr. Putin's arrest on South African soil could amount, or as he said, would amount to a declaration of war. The Kremlin also says everyone understands what an attempt to infringe on Mr. Putin's right would mean. Do you see South Africa playing safe here, or just making sure its ties with Russia is not altered in any way or form?
So you have to understand, Joke, that before now, South Africa is, I don't want to say getting isolated, but it could be in that direction. It doesn't have fantastic relationship with countries in the NATO or countries in the Western Bloc. I'm talking about the US, UK, and whatnot. It's already tilting towards having good relationship with China and Russia. And you know, BRICS is the organization that brings both South Africa and countries like Russia and China together. They are part of BRICS. And this could be a consequence of South Africa's commitment to its BRICS membership. It has to protect the interests of India, China, Russia, and Brazil. And if that's the case, it becomes quite a challenge for President Cyril Ramaphosa, to play it safe between abiding by his commitment to BRICS and not upsetting people by not arresting Putin. And as we heard from the ANC and Ramaphosa's office, he was never going to arrest Putin, just like South Africa did under with the case in Omar al-Bashir. But I think it's also a case of South Africa trying to toil carefully the diplomatic lines here. I mean, should it have said it was going to arrest Putin, regardless of if Putin come or not? It means South Africa will probably be straining its relationship not only with Russia but also with China, and perhaps with countries like Brazil and India. And if that's the case, does South Africa then go back to beg the US and beg countries like France and say, oh, we're sorry, we're now back in your playbooks? I think this was always going to be difficult for President Ramaphosa and the South African government.
And Ibrahim, this war between Russia and Ukraine has dragged on for over a year. Many wonder if perhaps South Africa is sitting on the fence, particularly with its level of neutrality in what Russia calls a special military operation in Ukraine.
Well, see, the unfortunate thing is that as someone who studied international relations for many years and African history, I strongly believe that African countries should have the right to determine their own diplomatic line, right? But also we have these African countries signing up to statutes like the Rome Statute that commits you to certain procedures. And if you contravene them, you are going to be found culpable. So I guess it shows that even though countries have the right to determine what they do with their own national policy or foreign policy, it's also hugely dependent on what the language of their signature, the agreement they have signatory to the international treaties. And I think there is a little bit hypocrisy going on here. I heard the EFF, the economic freedom fighter, and Julius Malema said, Putin should not be arrested. Soviet Union or Russia has always been a good friend of South Africa. Okay, but a lot of African countries were good friends of South Africa during apartheid, like Zimbabwe, like Somalia, like Nigeria. But the same people, the citizens of those countries in South Africa today are not being treated fairly. So when it says, oh, we are only protecting Russia's interests because they supported us during apartheid, okay, Nigeria supported you as well. Zimbabwe supported you as well. You treated them badly. So it's an hypocrisy going on with the ANC. One. Second, I believe African countries should have the right to determine their own foreign policy. But third, I think we should always be careful.
Thank you for your time on the program today.
Thank you, Joke.